You're tuned in to Reimagine 2021, version 11, the #1 virtual crypto and blockchain conference. In this section of Reimagine, our expert speakers explain who they think may end up owning parts of the metaverse.
Talking about the metaverse, do you think the infrastructure will be owned by a company, or do you think it will be owned by a collective community?
It's really early to tell. I mean, we've seen the power of communities and what that could mean, right? So for the first time, well, maybe not the first time, but in a really obvious way, we've seen when communities come together, they have strength in numbers, and we've seen that with the trading of meme stocks and tokens and all the craziness in the last year. But we're also seeing that in the development of products and services in decentralized finance, for example, right? Which is an area that I'm involved in. And so when you get to that stage, you kind of can't rule out the possibility of having a decentralized metaverse. And there will probably a lot of competition in both sides, right? The companies like Facebook and Microsoft, they have a lot of capital to put into this. And if they believe that that is the future, they will bet big on it and heavily on it, and they have the resources to really do some amazing innovations and work. But I also feel like for the first time, there's probably now a contender, and that is the community-driven development and products. And as the infrastructure matures around that, we'll definitely see more and more services and products coming out. So it'll be a tight race. I mean, it's hard to say who will win. I mean, personally, I could have lean one way or the other, but we'll have to see and kind of give it a few years.
What do you think? If you were to paint a picture, what does the future infrastructure for these NFTs look like? Do you think it's going to be one platform or multi-platform?
It'll definitely be multiple platforms because technology is becoming a lot easier to develop. If you look at it even in the last 5 years, it's become more accessible around the world to build products, and it's becoming easier and easier over time. And so it's hard to expect that there will be just like one winner or one platform that will build it, because they'll have some sort of a competitive advantage in a sense. A lot of people are probably sitting on similar kind of resources that are going to be building at the same time in parallel. And some will have certain use cases that make them unique and different, and others will have some other use cases and things that make them different. There could be a localization aspect, right? So for instance, if you look at a specific part of the world, a platform could be really focused on users on that part of the world, because they really understand that culture and what those people, that region is going to be interested in. And that's different in Asia than it is in Europe, than it is in North America. And so we'll definitely see multiple platforms competing on different areas and in different ways.
I think companies are going to try to take over the space, and there's so many different platforms, there's so many different brands that are exploring what they can do within the metaverse. But I think ultimately what will be the most popular things and what would be the most wide-ranging things are going to be community-owned, because that's what's most attractive and most fundamental to Web3, is the idea that a lot of the things about Web2, with the relationship between a creator and one of their fans, the one-to-many relationship is screwed up fundamentally, and people are looking to Web3 and to fix that and to create new solutions. So ultimately, I think in the very long term, community-led projects is going to win over company-led projects. Having said that, I do think that there is a place for company projects, especially for more curated, more exclusive works, where you do need someone behind it to make sure that it comes to life, instead of something being completely community-led.
Metaverse itself, it's like a digital world. So we have already in place like VR glasses and these 3D worlds. So it's kind of already happening. And Metaverse itself, it could be kind of owned by company, like Facebook can create their own metaverse as they promised, or other gaming companies, they can create their metaverses, right? But There is some other metaverses which are like Web3 native, like crypto metaverses, and they have this different ownership model, as the whole crypto offers you like a different ownership model. It's just a matter of kind of switching. The world is slowly like switching to this different, more effective ownership model. That's why in general metaverses with like shared ownership looks like they will be more successful comparing to metaverses where some like one company owned.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think it's less about, will it be a company owned or community owned thing, and more of like, will the battle between centralization versus decentralization win? And I think honestly, there's going to be both. I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where there's one unified metaverse. I think there's probably room for both. I think people who care about their data, care about decentralization, care about like being self-sovereign and like self-owned, will go the decentralized route, probably most crypto people. But then mainstream people, I think social media is evident of this, will want to go the centralized route because they want to be told something works the way it works, that it's easy, it's accessible, they don't have to worry about their data or their money. Someone else kind of handles all of that. And I think there's pros and cons to both, but I think it's tricky. I think there's going to be both because I don't see centralized companies giving up complete control, and I don't see decentralized communities wanting to like plug into these centralized ecosystems that require you to hand over your data and your information, whether that's like government information or company information.
At the end of the day, I think that these networks were built out in a way so that they can be community owned. The organizations at the end of the day can be community owned. When you have sort of decentralized permissionless networks, they are their own economies that are built out. You've got nodes that are incentivized to run the infrastructure. You've got participants that are purchasing cryptocurrency in order to pay for their applications to continue to persist on that network. It's fully autonomous, and it allows people to come to it and be able to create the world in which they want to create. And so I don't think, in an ideal world, I don't think that there should be any sort of central authority dictating how something should be ran. I think that people should be able to come and pop up their organization and decide which direction they want to take it. And at the end of the day, the infrastructure is just a place to live on, and it should be agnostic.
I think long term it'll be communities. Companies, it's just hard for me to imagine people who, I guess taking a step back, even today, think about privacy as an issue. So maybe I might adjust it slightly, but privacy as an issue is a huge deal, especially with social media. So there are obviously people that are using social media because it is so integral to their life, they can't possibly escape it. I think the Facebook example is a good one. But I know, however, the younger generations are saying, hey, like, Facebook is for the older generations, it's not for us. And so you're now seeing the younger Gen Z generations coming in and saying, actually taking a stand. Now, I mean, you could argue like TikTok is one of the biggest platforms and they're not necessarily super strong on privacy either. So there's obviously corporations that are trying to kind of get at the problem at all sides. But at the end of the day, I think as we progress with privacy on the Web 2 side, but also privacy holistically, I think we're going to catch up to a point where perhaps people are going to really start caring fully about it and really make no exceptions to the rule of, hey, just because I need to use it doesn't mean I'm going to. So if the corporate that is controlling it doesn't have the proper policies and procedures in place.
Yeah, communities will definitely own the metaverse. As we know, like Meta and Facebook are trying to control the metaverse as it exists right now, but they have to interact with economies. And they have Diem, which is their I want to say their stable coin, or like I want to say it's probably their blockchain off ramp. And like I'm going to theorize that I know NFTs are going to be included in Meta. And theorizing now, I do not know this, but it's probably going to go somewhat through the Diem infrastructure right there. And so with Diem, there's got to be got to be on and off ramps and those kind of things. So it inevitably will be trading pairs with like ETH or Conflux or Avalanche or like any one of these chains that exist out there. So it's going to be they're going to try to control, but it'll be community driven in the end.
What's your thought? What's NFT's impact on adoption? Because they all touched a little bit of everybody.
Yeah. So for those people who've been watching the space closely, I've been working full time since 2017 in blockchain and crypto. We've all been waiting for the killer application to come. And I think the infrastructure was built, really these are the highways. Now we need the cars and the passengers. And DeFi created a huge surge of value and new users into the space and actual real usage. NFTs now, which I have to say, I think this snuck up on a lot of people, even people who are experts who've been in the space for a while. NFTs now are the killer use case, the killer app that's going to bring not just the next 1 million daily active users, but 100 million daily active users.
Exactly, and I think the early days there was some congestion on the network. Infrastructure maybe wasn't there, the L1s. Give us a little bit about SKALE. I know people can go back to our old videos, but for this segment, give me like a little 2-minute spiel on SKALE Labs and what you guys are working on, because I want to tie that into how you guys are actually building out some tooling, some infrastructure that allow this NFTs to really blossom even more.
Yeah, so SKALE is a multi-chain network. What this means is there's many, many blockchains that can run in the SKALE network. The other key component is that it's Ethereum native. It's built with Ethereum, it's integrated to Ethereum. And so if you build something on Ethereum, it can run on SKALE really fast. And so why that's valuable is when you think about all the new users, all the use cases for NFTs, DeFi, Web3, et cetera, social tokens, B2B applications, we need a lot of blockchains that can help this work. But you need also pooled security, and you need connection into the Ethereum ecosystem, okay? Developer tools and the different software products and wallets, almost all of them that are getting big use are built into the Ethereum ecosystem. So SKALE is able to plug into that world and help the Ethereum ecosystem grow exponentially.
Exactly, and I think that's what was needed, right? Ethereum by itself a few years back, some issues, some challenges, some barriers that they're working on. You guys come in and providing this scaling solution to kind of take off the load and handle transactions yourselves. And to tailor it to NFTs, you guys have been doing some amazing things for quite some time now. Can you touch on what SKALE is doing specifically with the NFT market?
Yeah. So SKALE is actually, it ends up being a phenomenal place for NFTs to live. And the reason why is that the reason why SKALE is both fast and secure is because of the way it's built. It's built actually with something called containers. And these containers are essentially ways to divide up compute power. Now, these containers also can do things like store files and images. And so most blockchains don't have any dedicated space to actually take a file and store it. NFTs, for the most part, a lot of them are just people own a link. And that link points back to an Amazon server or IPFS server or another file storage place. And on SKALE, you can actually keep the image connected to the contract together. And so when someone spends $1 million on an NFT, they actually own that image as a connected piece to the contract.
Without maybe getting too technical, how did you guys do that? Going back to linking smart contracts, when someone buys an NFT, it kind of points to where it's located. And you just kind of mentioned some other other storage places and centralized institutions and players. How did you guys make that happen?
Yeah, so most blockchains, like you said, they have to point to another place where the file is stored or the image, right? And then the blockchain itself really just says, you own this, I own that. And if it were Bitcoin, right, the blockchain says you own that many Bitcoin, I own that many. And what SKALE does actually, that it doesn't have to link anywhere external. It links inside the chain. And again, it goes back to the use of containers. Containers are one of the biggest advancements in enterprise software over the last decade. It's absolutely transformed the way databases function for every single application we use. And SKALE is able to leverage cutting edge containerization strategy, and which enables new features that are all of a sudden cost effective. It's cost effective to keep the file on the chain, whereas in other blockchains, it would not be as cost effective because of the way the architecture is designed.
And this evolution, do you just see it just the pace of innovation accelerating even more, right? Because like you said, it used to point, and some chains don't hold all that storage and data. You guys are doing that. How are you seeing the pace of innovation kind of accelerating with with technology, I guess, and specifically with kind of with blockchains and NFTs.
One of the other blockers to the pace of innovation is also cost. And so to actually mint an NFT, it could be anywhere from tens or twenties of dollars to hundreds of dollars or $1,000 based off of the mainnet costs. And on Scale, there's also zero cost minting.
Wow.
And so you combine zero cost minting, you combine localized file storage, and all of a sudden we have Web 2 like properties in blockchain databases, and that's what we need. We need to. I think the desire has been there, but the value to friction ratio has been so off that it's just limited users only to very technically savvy people.
How do you see the metaverse playing out? I know Facebook's been talking about it for a long time. We have AR, VR, 30 years from the early 90s, and now we have NFTs to kind of add to the toolbox of ownership and being able to buy land, digital real estate, move goods around, services potentially down the road. So metaverse to you, how do you see where are we at in today's world in terms of that?
Well, so first off on NFTs, people generally prefer to own rather than rent. And that's the difference between NFTs and other types of in-game assets, right? If it's not on chain, if it's not permissionless and trustless, then you're just borrowing it from somebody else. They can revoke that at any time. And that's not a very good feeling when that's the case for the things that you prize, right? The things that you value. Now, the metaverse is a super interesting concept, and it's fascinating how rapidly this meme has sort of taken hold. And the metaverse is this notion of this digital representation that is sort of cross-border, that it doesn't really matter where the asset came from or what the properties of the asset are, that the assets can move between environments and have uniqueness and have characteristics across them. Oftentimes it's characterized as something sort of like Ready Player One and the movies that represent this. And just imagine like in the physical world, well, in order for this bottle of water to exist, the environment that you're in has to recognize it as a bottle of water. So only certain bottles of water can exist in this environment. Like that would make no sense at all. I have a bottle of water at home, I have a bottle of water here, I still have a bottle of water. Like that doesn't work that way digitally. Unless you're in a metaverse context, which is regardless of where you are in the digital space, the characteristics of your assets, of your ownership, come with you. And that's pretty profound, but also sort of weirdly common sense, right? And I think we're at the very beginning, sort of the skeletal stages of the metaverse emerging.